Hi students, welcome to lesson 16 Postmodern Feminism. Let us start with the introduction. Some feminists agree with postmodernists that we are now in a new era of human history, distinct from modernity, an era feminists believe was characterized by patriarchy. Postmodern feminists agree with other feminists that gender is a very important identity and that women are often subject to discrimination. However, they are interested in how people can pick and mix their identities, including gender, and are also interested in the nature of masculinity, rather than rejecting stereotypical aspects of the female gender identity. They often embrace their femininity as a positive identity. It is not right to think biological difference between male and female is same as gender difference between man and women. In Western culture, there are only two genders. Generally, people are called man or woman according to their behavior, dress pattern, etc. But in many other societies, there are people who belong between male and female. For example, in Indian society, there is a third gender type known as hijras. They are biologically males but would dress and behave like women and are called as male women in Western society. So, gender difference varies according to society. The building blocks of gender are socially constructed statutes. The objectives are to learn and understand in general feminist perspective, to study postmodern theory of feminism. Now, let us start with understanding from historical perspective. Gender classification starts right after the birth of human babies. Babies are named according to the appearance of genitalia. They are dressed like how peers in the same gender are done. After getting the idea about the gender, others begin to behave to the child in a different way from they do with peers in other gender. People keep the difference with the child in the way and the things they talk. Parents would be careful to direct boys and girls in separate ways to meet their expectations, which are derived from the conventional concept of society. Society assigns separate responsibility for father and mother. Attitude of people towards the difference between male and female can vary according to society and culture. But no society keeps same approach towards male and female. Feminism is a social and political movement that advocates for the rights of women on the grounds of equality of sexes. It does not deny the biological differences between the sexes, but demands equality in opportunities. It covers everything from social and political to economic arenas. In fact, feminist campaigns have been a crucial part of history in women empowerment. The feminist campaigns of 20th century made the right to vote, public property, work and education possible. Feminism is not just important for women, but for every sex, gender, caste, creed and more. It empowers the people and society as a whole. A very common misconception is that only women can be feminist. It is absolutely wrong, but feminism does not just benefit women, it strives for equality of the sexes, not the superiority of women. Feminism takes the gender roles which have been around for many years and tries to deconstruct them. This allows people to live freely and empower lives without getting tied down by traditional restrictions. In other words, it benefits women as well as men. Most importantly, it is essential for young people to get involved in the feminist movement. This way, we can achieve faster results. It is no less than a dream to live in a world full of equality. Thus, we must all look at our own cultures and communities for making this dream a reality. we have not yet reached the result, but we are on the journey. So, we must continue on this mission to achieve successful results. Now, impact of feminism, where feminism has had a life-changing impact on everyone, especially women. If we look at history, we see that it is what gave women the right to vote. It was no small feat, but it was achieved successfully by women. Further, if we look at modern feminism, we see how feminism involves in life-altering campaigns. Moreover, feminism constantly questions patriarchy and strives to renounce gender roles. It allows men to be whoever they wish to be without getting judged. It is not taboo for men to cry anymore because they must be allowed to express themselves freely. Now, let us start with postmodern feminist theory. Postmodern feminist theory is a school of thought that emphasizes the importance of social and political factors in understanding gender. Postmodern feminists believe that gender is not determined by biology, but rather by culture and society. They argue that women have been oppressed not because they are biologically inferior to men, but because they have been socially and politically marginalized. Postmodern feminism began in the year 1970 as a reaction to second wave feminism. Second wave feminism was based on the belief that women were oppressed due to their biology, that is their sex. This led to a focus on issues like reproductive rights and equal access to education and employment. According to postmodern feminists, these issues were not enough to liberate women from oppression. Instead, they believed that women's oppression was the result of social and political factors. Postmodern feminism is associated with thinkers as diverse as Michael Foucault, Judith Butler, and Donna Haraway. Postmodern feminists assume that the modernist conception of feminism emphasizes gender differences between women and men, while ignoring the difference within each gender. For example, while all women may be oppressed by patriarchy, not all women experience this oppression in the same way. While middle class women, for example, may have more privilege than women of color or working class women. Similarly, lesbians may experience different forms of oppression than heterosexual women. Postmodern feminists also critique the notion of a unified sisterhood among all women. They pointed out that there are many factors that divide women along lines of race, class, sexuality, and other categories. As such, they argued that it was important to focus on the unique experiences of each group of women. Postmodern feminism is a subsection of third wave feminism, mainly because of its rejection of the universality of the gendered experiences of individuals living in a patriarchal system. Postmodern feminism is based on postmodern ideas as well as concepts from post-structuralism and French feminism. It understands gender stereotypes to be a cultural construct of patriarchy and aims to deconstruct them to liberate individuals to define their understanding of what it is to be them. Postmodern feminism is a branch of third wave feminism that incorporates the philosophies of postmodernism, post-structuralism, and French feminism. It sees gender stereotypes as culturally constructed through language and aims to dethrone the prevalent patriarchal binary norms in favor of embracing differences and individual experiences. Structuralism is a movement that understands culture to be made up of complementary structures defined in opposition to each other and often arranged in a hierarchy. Examples are man-woman, rational-emotional, Post-structuralism rejects the binary view of the world and suggests that history and culture have a big impact in defining each subject. Feminism is a branch of third wave feminism characterized by a focus on philosophy and literature instead of politics. It produced literary works that were metamorphical, effusive and focused on theories of the body. For a better understanding of postmodern feminism, let us have a closer look at third wave feminism in context. Feminist thought also has a long history divided into waves to define the key developments. The first and the second wave feminism were the prevailing schools of thought between the late 18th century and 1980s. They both emerged in what today we define as the global north. First wave feminism presents women as equal to men on grounds of their equal ability for rational thought and achieved women's suffrage. Second wave feminism celebrates femininity and the sisterhood of women, and they were concepts that were universally recognized. Second wave feminism centered on fighting for reproductive rights while riding on the success of the previous two waves of feminism. Third wave feminism rejects some of the assumptions of first wave and second wave feminist movements. Due to the incorporation of the idea of intersectionality, such an intersectional approach acknowledges the interplay between gender, ethnic background, wealth, class, sexual orientation and the presence of a disability when considering a person's experience of prejudice and marginalization. Now, let us study the postmodern feminism aims. Postmodern feminism aims to dissect the intrinsic societal, cultural and language based causes of gender inequality. It analyzes society, language and written works to identify biases. According to postmodern feminism, the causes of gender oppression in patriarchal structures are multiple. Examples of these could be the erasure and underrepresentation of gender identities, the challenge restrictive gender binaries and norms. Once inequality is identified, postmodern feminists aim to challenge these oppressive patriarchal tools. An example of this is in action in generating new ways of being, expressing and behaving which challenge patriarchal gender norms and gender binary. That is, 1. Sex is assigned based on an individual's external reproductive organs at birth, whereas a person's gender reflects how they express their sex through behavior. Second one, according to postmodern feminist theory, both sex and gender are socially constructed through language. Consequently, different societies have different constructs of both gender and sex. Postmodern feminism also highlights how we create a restrictive gender binary with our language. As a result, this trend allows strict gender roles and expectations to proliferate within patriarchal societies. Postmodern feminism, like postmodernism, rejects essentialism and binary oppositions as it sees them as patriarchal constructs that oppress the feminine. The postmodern feminist philosopher, writer, poet and playwright Helen Syzox draws a commentary on masculinity and femininity by analyzing male writing and encouraging female writing. She describes male writing as typically linear, which is based on oppositions and lacking gender diversity, as it excludes the body, and according to Syzox, female writing should be escapism which can never be theorized or enclosed or coded. She demonstrates this kind of writing by including many writing styles in her works, from densely theoretical to slang, from flowy poetry and metaphors to associative wordplay. Postmodern feminism is a later form of feminism that critiqued some of the assumptions of earlier feminist thought through combining both postmodern and post-structural theory. Postmodern feminists reject essentialism, which is the belief that there is necessarily an inherent difference between men and women. Postmodern feminists also put an emphasis on the theory of symbolic order. The symbolic order contends that when young children learn language, they will have to submit the order so they can follow linguistic patterns of society. The symbolic order regulates society through individuals who constantly use the language that perpetuates gender and other social roles. That is, the social roles are: the personal is political. This means that the private experiences of women are shaped by larger social and political structures. For example, if a woman is being abused by a male partner, postmodern feminists contend that the societal oppression of women is an important factor in explaining this abuse. This term was popularized by Carol Hannisk in 1970 essay, "The Person is Political." There is no one way to be a woman. This means that there is no universal experience of womanhood. Instead, each woman experiences gender in their own unique way. Postmodern feminists also believe that gender is not something that people are born with, but rather something that they perform. In the postmodernist view, feminism is for everyone. This means that feminism is not just for women, it is for anyone who experiences oppression due to their gender, including transgender and genderqueer people. Knowledge is power. This means that women can empower themselves by acquiring knowledge about the social and political factors that shape their lives. For example, women can learn about sexism, racism and other forms of oppression. This knowledge can then be used to challenge and resist these structures of oppression. Postmodern feminism has been critiqued for its focus on individual experience and its lack of attention to structural issues. However, it has also been praised for its inclusiveness and its emphasis on diversity of women's experiences. Postmodern feminism is a new branch of feminism that strives for equality for women within the category of women. While doing so, they take into account the differences among the women on the basis of class and race. Hence, it is intersectional in its approach. According to Flax, the postmodern feminist theorists intend to identify feminist perspective of society, examine the way social world affects women, analyze the role played by power and knowledge relationships in shaping the women's perception of the social world, devise the ways through which social world can be changed. And Helen Seixas, Luca Irigaray and Julia Kristeva are the most prominent writers of postmodern feminist philosophy. Rosemary Tong, in her book Feminist Thought, A More Comprehensive Introduction, has discussed Helen Seixas. Helen Seixas is a novelist. She is inspired by Derrida's concept of difference. Applying Derrida's idea of difference to writing, she differentiated feminine writings from that of masculine writings. Therefore, Seixas requests women to put themselves in words. She urges them to write about themselves outside the world that man has constructed for them. She describes women's writing as scribbling, the scratching marks, whereas man's writings are composed and full of so-called human wisdom. Thus, masculine writings are stamped with social approval, hence they are too heavy to be changed. Seixas insists women to write as their writings will transform the way Western world thinks, speaks and acts. This will eventually change the cultural and social standard. However, she warns women that writing about non-existence as existence, that is, to foresee the unforeseeable, is straining and difficult task. Luca Irigaray is a psychoanalyst who was inspired by Lacan and Derrida. She developed feminine philosophical thought as her main aim was to liberate feminine philosophy from men's philosophies. She argues that the kind of woman that is known to us is masculine feminine. She is not the real woman, rather the woman that men see. This is because in masculine discourse, woman is not a woman, but a reflection of man's imagination of her. Hence, she argues that there is a need to see another woman who is feminine, either woman as women sees. This woman cannot be defined. If women wishes to see themselves as women, then they need to take 3 steps. Firstly, women should stop using masculine language and develop female language which gender neutral. Secondly, women should develop female sexuality with the help of lesbian and autoerotic practices. Women can identify their potential. By exploring multifaceted body, women will be able to speak words, think thoughts and then do deeds that will displace the phallus. Thirdly, women should mime the mimes men have imposed on women. Women should take men's images of women and reflect them back to men in magnified proportions. Through miming, women can undo the effects of phallocentric discourse simply by overdoing them. To sum up the lesson, postmodern feminists argue that the difference the nature has kept on male and female are quite different from the social construction of difference between men and women. They mention lots of evidences to argue this point, but even then, though there are variations according to society and culture, males got lots of priorities in such a social structuring. Women are the victims of this kind of social structuring. There are many evidences to prove that women can do almost all works that men do, but in major parts of the world, society is not ready to recognize this fact. Thank you.